Hello, this is Charlie from MMG, and today I'm going to be walking through the main UI of VMIX. So, what can we see on the main UI? So this is what VMIX will currently look like when you first open it. Obviously, I've loaded in a video and also made a title here, and we'll obviously go through how to do that in later tutorials. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I've done this just to demonstrate all of the main parts of the UI as you see when you open the program. So you've got here, this basically takes you to your main settings within VMIX, which will have an entire tutorial going through the entire settings window and what everything means and how to set up VMIX correctly. Basic buttons. So this basically takes you into basic mode of VMIX, makes the UI obviously a lot more basic and have a lot less complexity to it. For this, we'll be doing it in advanced mode as it gives you the full capabilities of VMIX. But if you're doing a very basic show, you could potentially use basic. That's up to you. Now, the pause input. So if I click this, you can see we've got this video playing. It will immediately pause all of the playing inputs. Now, let's play again. Now, down the middle, and I suppose actually we'll start with the two windows. So this is your main window, and this is your preview window. So down the middle, these are basically all of your transitions. So you can click cut, you do a fade. Now, these particular ones, you see they've got the drop-down arrow. So we can actually select any of these transitions here that we would like, including stingers, which can also be set by you, which we'll go into more detail on later. You can set the duration down here in milliseconds as well for each transition. And as you can see, you've got a bank of 4 different custom transitions. And then you've got your cut and quick play, which can be decided in the settings what transition your quick play is. You've also got a fade to black. So this will not actually fade anything that you can visibly see in the VMIX interface to black, but all of your actual outputs will be fade basically black when this is flashing red, and your audio will also be at 0 as well, depending on the settings you've chosen. Now down here, you've got your overlays. So this is overlay channels 1 to 8. So if I just click that now, we've currently got this last selected as our last overlay on 1. So that defaults to that when we click number 1. If we click number 2, we haven't set number 2 yet, but let's say I now put this on number 2, like that. We then click number 2, it will play your last overlay that you had on that channel when you click the overlay buttons here. And then here is a T-bar, which basically allows you to obviously do custom transitions. Now, the bit at the top here, so the full screen, now that is essentially your outputs through HDMI and the graphics card. Now, we haven't got any connected at the moment, but we'll go more into detail on outputs in a later tutorial. Now, at the top here, this is basically to do with presets for VMIX. So this will basically load the last profile that you saved, which in this case is the same one. Now, save as, obviously you can click that and you can save the profile, whatever you would like to call it. Save, so that will obviously just save over the last save that you made of this particular profile. Open, which obviously we do the drop down, you can see your last open projects and then click them, it will open whatever project is selected. And then if you click new, prompt you to save, and then it will obviously create a completely fresh template for you. Now, starting at the bottom now, so this basically is how you add your inputs, and it can be any of the inputs here. Again, we'll have more tutorials going more in depth of the actual adding inputs to VMIX and the different kinds of inputs that you can use within VMIX. You've got record here. If you press the cog, that gets you to your record settings, but there's 2 different recorders. Again, we'll have a more in detailed explanations of recorders in later tutorials. External, that is relates to your actual outputs within VMIX. So in VMIX, you get 4 outputs, and this is basically how you configure those outputs. And if you want to put them out of maybe a output card, such as an SDI card, or if you simply want to change the outputs, which will basically dictate the outputs over, say, NDI, OMT, things like that. This is your streaming. So you click the cog, you can then change the settings for your streaming for like RTMP, things like that. which there is 5 different locations that you can stream to simultaneously. We'll go into the further detail on that later. Now the multi-recorder, this is essentially just, as it sounds, a multi-channel recorder. So you can record multiple things with this. Currently we've got our 4 outputs here, but it's also got the ability to record certain types of inputs as well, and then various settings around that. Now there's also a playlist functionality within VMIX. So this basically allows you to create a playlist of video content, things like that, that can easily be played out. And then it will just cycle through videos as you basically configure it to do so. Great if you've got maybe an ad reel in your event during like breaks, things like that. Here is your overlay settings. Now we'll go more into detail on overlays later, but that's how you access the overlay settings. This here, so this essentially gives you a quick shortcut to various different plugins for VMIX and bits of like add-on software. GT Title Designer, for example, which allows you to design your own titles and graphics essentially in quite a basic way. VMIX Social ties into social media, data sources, and various other things as well. Here is a essentially statistics for VMIX, so frame drop, renderer drop, and essentially how well the inputs are performing within VMIX. And then over here, view shortcuts. So this actually will show you any program shortcuts in VMIX, and it will appear the same as it does on the web controller. This is a very useful one to remember. So this actually allows you to take screenshots of your main out just by clicking that, and then you can actually save a screenshot of your main out as a PNG. The lock button, so this actually locks your inputs in terms of being able to close them, things like that. And actually moving on quick to the inputs and audio. So these are the inputs that you see here, and this is where they'll load. You can also drag this bar up, and then you can actually see a greater number of inputs here. For the audio, you can also drag this bar. So if you've got a lot of audio buses, you can expand that, or you can make it smaller at the same time and then have them stack like this. So for the inputs, they basically go numbered. So 1 through to however many inputs you've created. The X here allows you to close the inputs. So I'll do that quickly, just like so. Just bring that back. Here is overlay control. So if you want to play this as an overlay directly over, you can just click that on the input and it will then overlay on channel overlay 1 onto the main output. The go, so that's essentially your quick play, same as this up here. And that's a a cutting function that's designed basically in your settings. You can select it to be whatever kind of cut or transition as such. You can also cut directly. So if I click that, it will cut directly to the output. And then this here, as you can see, I've got it playing on the video. That's just a loop. So that will loop any video or audio files that you've got loaded in. The pause button here, which obviously will pause the video playing. And then I can unpause it. You've also got here audio, so whether we want audio to be on or off. So if I click that, audio comes on, and you know because it goes green, and then it's blue when the audio is off. But it basically allows you to know that there's audio on that, and then you can tell it if you want the audio to go to your main output or not. This is actually a way to preview input. So if I click this, it takes over the whole screen. I can preview that input. In order to make that go small again, you literally just click anywhere on the input on the screen and it takes it away and goes back to small. And then this settings cog is the actual settings of that input. And all of your inputs will have these settings, which we'll go through in a later tutorial. Now for the audio, I'm just going to drag this out quickly. Now, if we want to unpin it, we can do that. And then you can actually put this on a separate monitor. And then you can actually have a separate window with all of your audio inputs if you want the space for all of your video inputs along here. And to get it back pinned there, you just click the minus there and it goes right back there. Now, this is the level of your audio inputs. So obviously I can turn it all the way down, bring it up, or set it to wherever is comfortable. This allows you to pan. So I can pan things however I like as well. So that's very useful in certain situations potentially. This at the bottom here where it says M and A, so this is basically what you're busing that input to. So main, or bus A. This here is essentially the same as this audio button. So if I click that, the audio goes on. And then if I click it again, it goes back off. This is automatic audio mixing. So this will essentially mean that your audio follows the video. So if I cut this to the preview, select this. Now when I cut this back to the main, the audio will actually come on automatically. So it will follow what the video is doing. Solo. So if you've got your solo connected properly, you can actually have headphones connected, click solo, and actually listen to that input and just that input to hear what's going on, even if it's off and it won't go to the main show. And then to access the settings, you click the cog, and then you've got all of your different audio settings, which we'll cover in a later tutorial. Now, you can also look at statistics for the audio buses as well. And then you can actually look at different drop samples, latency etc., all from here. Now, the next bit to cover, I think, for the main interface is all of these numbers at the bottom here. So what do these mean? So obviously you've got 1080p 25 here. That is your resolution and frame rate of your file. FPS, obviously 25, as it says here. Render time. Now, the render time is quite an important metric. So if your render time, let's say you're trying to do 1080-60 and your render time is 30 milliseconds, that will mean you'll be dropping frames. So roughly, on average, a frame of 60 is around 16 milliseconds. So you want to make sure if you're operating at 60 FPS, you want your render time to be below that 60 milliseconds so that VMIX can always render the frame and isn't lagging behind and dropping frames. So it's important for this metric to be, I would argue, below 15 milliseconds as a safety net. GPU memory. So obviously that's how much VRAM you're using, GPU memory. CPU VMIX, so the percentage of CPU that's in use while VMIX is open. And then you've got total, which is basically just sort of a average metric of CPU, GPU, and basically just the total resources of your machine. Now, without getting too much more into detail, obviously with videos and things, you can see here we've got our play bar for this video. So we can restart, pause, etc. And it also tells you the time for the VT here. Now, we will be going more into detail on inputs and video content, things like that. I think for the purpose of this tutorial, that is everything for the main interface of VMIX. Yeah, stay tuned for more VMIX tutorials. We'll be covering so many of the parts of VMIX, and there's a lot to cover in great detail so that you are always prepared to run any show and build any show that is needed. So thank you for listening. Now, stay tuned for more VMIX tutorials. You can find them on our YouTube and our website, mmgaxis.io.